Galloway is a construction manager and consultant, commercial and residential builder, and a certified inspector for all commercial and residential buildings. And now, here is About the House with Troy Galloway.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to About the House. I'm your humble host, Troy Galloway. I'm the owner of Galloway Building Services, but I'm also here for this show is about the Construction Consumer Advocacy Institute. And it's actually, we're an audio video library. Everything you'd ever want to know about your house. And we've got all these professionals that we've been bringing on for years. We got tons of great videos out there for you to learn. And a little bit about myself. I do building inspections. I do construction litigation issues. That's a little bit about me. I'm going to introduce Kevin. Kevin was on our other show several years ago, but he was taught more at that time, which they still do, home warranties, which is fabulous. And you got to listen to his old show. And I want you to listen to his new show because I've already convinced him to come back on one more time to do his new show. But I'm going to go back to the book. When you folks do join the advocacy and you buy our book, like I said, a piece of the proceeds will go to the Moolah Shrine. And what that is it's to help the children. And we all know how the Shriners, they see the advertisements all the time, how they've been gracious enough to allow us to use their room here. And so we want to make sure that we're kind enough to reciprocate and the great things they do. It's awesome. Anyway, Kevin, I want you to jump right in, tell a little bit about your company.
All right, thank you. The reason we do that handyman service on steroids is that we actually have 6 guys in the field that do the work. We're not just what we call a chuck in a truck. We do free estimates. We have actually a 1-year warranty on our labor. So if something goes wonky after a few months, the labor is covered to replace it or repair it again if we need to. That's very helpful in the real estate world because sometimes it's the seller, that may be paying for the purchase and paying for the repairs. And then if something goes wrong in a few months, the buyer would still be covered by it.
Oh, that's cool. So, I did not know that, Kevin. That's great to know. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we give free estimates. And when we do the estimate, we itemize it out. So a lot of times homeowners will come to us and they may have 5 or 6 things that they want to have done. And so what we'll do is we'll give them a price on each one individually. And that may help sometimes with negotiations if you're getting a real estate deal, or it may help in budgeting. Because I can budget these 2 items this month, but next month I can get these other items done. Okay, so by doing on a line item bid, they'll know exactly what the pricing is for that.
You know what I like about that, and this is because this is teaching you what to do about how to hire these types of companies. A lot of these guys will just want to work by the hour.
Right.
And the horror stories we see out there, I thought they said it was only going to take an hour or 2, and then they took off for lunch. They come back an hour later, and they charged me for 10 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Where this way, if you take off for lunch for an hour, it still won't cost us nothing. We know exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's all priced by the job. So you're right. So we don't have to worry about it's going to take us 2 hours and it took us 6, that kind of a thing. We don't have to worry about it. The only time we will have to change the price is maybe if we have to open up a wall and we found out there may be damage or something behind it, and then that will have to change the price. But other than that, if this is what we quoted you, this is what we bid. This is what the price is.
That's great. Yeah. And that's what you need to want to get from your handyman company or your company. Does this go now? Kevin and Mister Fix-It Company, you folks work in the St. Louis area region, but the show goes all over North America.
Right.
So whenever company you work for, that's why he mentioned that he's not the franchise,
Right.
But this is what you need to ask your handyman. Do you guys do this? And if not, you know what that means to me? Maybe they don't know really what they're doing.
That's right. And if they are going to charge you to do an estimate, that's crazy. You hear this all the time. Or maybe they charge you a trip charge because you're not right within a 20-mile radius of their office. That's crazy too. So we do cover the Missouri side, of the St. Louis metro. So it's St. Louis City and County, St. Charles County, Jefferson County, Lincoln, Warren, and Franklin. Okay,
and that's a good spread.
It's a good spread. And we also, one of the things that people should ask for if they're working with another handyman, another repair service, that kind of thing, is ask for the certificate of insurance.
I mentioned that in the book about that, and I have a chapter on insurances, and that is absolute, folks. Explain to that, because you can read it in the book, but explain to me what that means real quick to the folks that don't have the book.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about working with us on other reputable companies is, we do have liability insurance, and we do carry workers' comp for our employees. And so if by chance some of our people were to get injured on your property, it's not going to be your responsibility. It's going to be our responsibility because we have the insurance for them, and so they're not going to be suing you, that type of thing. A lot of the independent companies, the chuck in the truck kind of guys, you don't really know if they've got insurance or not. So if they get injured on your property, they can sue you. For that. So what we say is, like, if just you check, get a copy of the certificate of insurance or liability insurance, and then call the insurance company to make sure it's valid, because there have been some cases where the company will falsify a certificate of insurance.
I've seen it a lot of times.
Yeah, that's right.
It's amazing. Now we got computers, we can make anything look like.
You absolutely can. Yeah, and so call the insurance company to make sure that's valid, and that they still have the coverage, and that's just to protect you. The other thing you can do is you always, you check with the Better Business Bureau. You typically can get some good information from the Better Business Bureau. Mr. Fix-It is A+ rated on the Better Business Bureau. And so we're making sure that if we do get a complaint about something, we address the complaint, and we make sure that our clients are taken care of in the end.
That's important. And we talked about that right before the show,
Yeah.
About everybody makes mistakes. But it's not the mistakes that makes a good contractor. It's how we attend to it.
Correct.
And that's so important there. It's amazing how bad that is out there. So.
That's right.
But anyway, I interrupted. Please go right ahead.
But you're absolutely right, because we have the guarantee, which is part of that. You have the insurance. You make sure the companies that you're working with, they have that insurance as well. So again, it's really to protect you, because if you're working with somebody who doesn't have any insurance and they get injured on your property, they can sue you, and they will probably win. So this is, make sure they got the proper insurance, and you won't have to have that worry at all.
And also too, whenever you are a certificate holder, and this already, I'm just mentioning that to the folks. So sometimes these guys will go out there and they'll pay, a month or two, and then they don't get onto your job, and they've already canceled it. You think you got a legitimate certificate. Well, when you're a certificate holder, the insurance company will say, hey, ABS Contracting, which I don't even know who that is. I just made that name up, so I'm not trying to say nothing about that company. But they know they've canceled their insurance. How would you ever know?
Yeah, that's right.
Because these guys are cons. That's why it's important. That's why the show's important. That's why we started the Consumer Construction Advocacy, to help people learn this kind of stuff.
Exactly right.
So, absolutely. That's good information. I'm being rude.
No, you're not.
Right into
No. So that's probably what we just call ourselves, the handyman service on steroids, because we do a wide variety of different things. We'll talk a little bit about that. If I can make my eyes work. There we go. All right. So carpentry projects, of course, everything from replacing a deck or repairing a deck, like we just mentioned earlier, to installing custom shelving, and trim, whether it's baseboard trim or new casing around the doors, those types of things as well. We do a lot with rotted wood replacement. You look like you had a question.
No, I'm going. Actually, I was as soon as you get done, because May is deck repair month. So you just nailed it when you put this here. So I was going to ask you some questions.
All right,
but go ahead, because it's perfect timing.
Okay, so the rotted wood replacement comes in handy because it gives, if somebody's had a problem with water or whatever, a sill plate can rot, which is the piece of wood that's on the concrete foundation that then the floor joist will actually rest on. And you have to be able to replace the whole sill plate if it's rotted, or at least the whole rotted section of it. And that's something that we've done a lot. It's just a matter of using the proper amount of jacks, sticking them on the joist, raising it up just enough so we can get the bad sill plate out, and then go back in and put the rest of it in. Our sister, what's called sistering the joist, putting two good things around a bad piece of wood to keep it strong, so that's all the rotted wood replacement. So we work a lot with companies that do water damage and mold damage repair, and then we come in and we do the things that are on structural on the house that needs to be done in that case.
So on a deck repair, it's May, we mentioned that. So tell us, what are some of the things we should be looking for when we go out to look at our deck? I know I've done shows on and stuff, but you're out there firsthand or in the trenches. What are some of the things that I want people to be looking at to make sure, they may not even realize it?
Yeah. it could just be, as simple as a rotted wood. Maybe some of the actual deck planking is soft. So it means it's rotting away, and you might want to take care of that. Maybe the stairs aren't coming down properly and sitting on a concrete pad. Maybe they're just still sitting on dirt, which will cause those stringers to rot as well and soften up. And then if you can get underneath your deck, look and see how it's attached, especially if you got something coming off the second story or even a few feet off the ground. You want to make sure it's attached properly to the foundation or to the structure of the house, not just with some nails or things along those lines, with its joist hangers, things like that, to make sure that it's all structurally sound. That's just a couple of things.
Let me ask you, are you finding much on your deck repair? Remember how the guys have used the wrong nails on hangers forever.
Right.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
But are you having to replace many of that? Are you seeing much of that yet?
Yeah, we still do. Yeah, you see, like, so you have to go in there with.
So the guys are still making the same mistakes they've been making for 20-some years.
And a lot of times it could be that it may have been the homeowner that put the deck in. So maybe they didn't pay to have it done, but they didn't know the proper way of doing it. But again, it could have also been somebody just didn't know what they were doing.
One of them, what do you call them, a chuck in a truck?
Chuck in a truck.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, they probably thought they was deck builders too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And the rotted wood could also be around windows or doors, because you get the sill plate, or not the sill plate, but you get the trim around the window. It actually can rot because you get water in behind the flashing that should be there, and so then you can go in there and repair parts of that too. So.
Now, what about termite damage? Now,
Yeah.
where we're at, we have a lot of termites. We're not as bad as southern states,
Right?
But we're better than some of the other states. But what do you see happen? What should we be looking for as a consumer for termite damage? What can we maybe hopefully see so we know to call somebody like yourself?
Well, if you see trails of what look like mud on your concrete foundation, right, on the outside of it, or even on the inside, it means you've got termites someplace, because they don't like being out in the sunlight. So they build these mud tunnels to move around in. And if you see this on the outside of your basement or inside of your basement, you've got termites there, and you're going to need to have a termite specialist come in to remove them and take care of that part of it.
All right, so you do the repair at a termite company. I just wanted to make sure to say it out loud.
That's right.
And actually, I just did a blog on this, and it should be coming out maybe this week because it is May. On termites.
Okay.
So and I did a whole series actually on termites, kissing bugs, stink bugs, ants, a whole bunch of different ones. But anyway, so and I see on the window and door repair, I see a lot of improperly installed windows and doors.
Sure.
And where that's rotted away.
Right. That's right.
And so what would be a sign that homeowners could be looking for? They may be to know that, because it is covered, with drywall, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the first things it could be you're seeing something as simple as water or some condensation on the wall. So there's something's coming through somehow. Okay. It may be the fact that the drywall feels damp. It might be as simple as paint underneath the window, on the drywall is actually bubbled. You see, so some water has got behind the paint, in between the paint and the drywall, and it causes that paint to bubble out. And so you got water coming in somewhere. And so that's one of the easiest things. And then the obviously one of most people will notice is the wood's rotting. And they'll see that. But to try and catch it ahead of time, look for these things, whether the paint's bubbling or whatever. And we had a problem with that in my own house, and it was something around our chimney. And we actually had to have some specialists come in to replace the crown, on the chimney, because it was old and it had started to rot away, and water was coming down. And water will always find the least, the easiest way to get to someplace, right?
Right.
And it kind of goes where it wants to go. And so it came in through the house, and we started seeing bubbling coming up on the paint in front on our wall right there on where our fireplace was. And so we knew we had a problem, and so we had just had the roof replaced. So I had the roofer come out and take a look at that to see, again, if that was a problem, and then he goes, nope, we think it's the chimney crown. So that's when we had that taken care of. And it hasn't had a problem since it was done.
Now, that's I'm glad you mentioned that about the chimney crown. Now, you don't do the masonry work, but, a lot of our chimneys are wood chases.
Yeah.
And with a metal cap. Do you all replace the metal cap?
We can. On a single-story house, we'll do that.
So I'm not going to be able to get you up on my 3-story, walk out,
Sorry.
on a mountainside.
No,
okay,
no.
well.
Our workers' comp only covers up to a certain height off the ground. So
that's my excuse too.
So that's just some of the carpentry that we've done. But we've done everything from helping people build custom shelving. We put we'll hang TVs for the people, things like that, or maybe build a custom cabinet, library type of thing, and put a TV or other types of things within their homes.
So
as well.
you got there's some skilled labor there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a little different than putting a sill plate in. I mean, that takes, I mean, of course, I'm prejudiced as a carpenter. That's a real skill there.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
That's true.
that's great. That's great information, and that's good for you folks to look at. No matter where you're at in the country, if you see this, get a hold of somebody.
That's right. Another thing we do is electrical work. Now, we are not licensed electricians, but really, according to the U.S. Electrical Code, you really only need a licensed electrician if you're going to be doing electrical panel work. You know, whether you're increasing the size of the panel or replacing the panel. And then you bring in a licensed electrician because they need to pull a permit to get all that stuff taken care of. But there's an awful lot of other things that we can do as handyman on steroids that doesn't require us to be a licensed electrician. Now that may change based on your municipality, so you need to check with your municipality. But for the most part, if you need just troubleshooting done on outlets or switches, things like that, we can do that kind of work for you.
So if I got, which we see a lot in with the older homes, Vietnam era homes, aluminum wiring. And you folks can literally just take my old outlets out, my switches out, and put the right type in.
We can. Yeah,
Awesome.
we can do that. Yeah, and you do the proper connections and all that type of thing as well. You bet.
And that's a good thing to think of, folks, because we all know about the aluminum wiring. And you could, of course, I got a whole bunch of videos and stuff on that, but that's good to know because when you do it yourself and you're a homeowner, that could hurt. You get shocked.
That's right.
You see Jesus real quick.
That's right. Yeah. And then we can obviously install, replace outlets and switches. And GFCI stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. And what that does is basically it detects a drop in the voltage and it will immediately kill power to that particular outlet. So that's why it's become required now for kitchen on the kitchen counter. You have to have those outlets have to be GFCI protected. Obviously, in bathrooms, they have to be GFCI. Garages and outdoor outlets all have to be GFCI protected. Not necessarily the GFCI outlet that you see. It just has to be protected by one of those.
Explain to the folks what that means. I know what you're talking about because sometimes they misunderstand. They might not. They will see a GFCI,
right?
But they don't understand that that's still connected. So explain to the folks what that means.
Yeah, what that does is you may remember, gosh, what was it, probably 80s, 90s, even earlier than that, you kept hearing all these stories about people being electrocuted in their bathtubs, right? They would drop the blow dryer, in the tub. And
I love you, honey.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was even some movies plots based around that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so what they did is they developed this technology called the GFCI, ground fault circuit interruption. And what it does is that in case of somebody dropping a blow dryer into a tub of water, it detects that drop in voltage and immediately kills the power to those outlets that are protected by that GFCI.
The ones that are following in line behind it.
As well, yeah, that one and the ones that are hooked into line behind.
I just wanted to make sure they know what that means.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to be injured. You could still be injured a little bit, but you're not going to be dead. So that's one of the things that they did. So now any place where there's a chance of water, again, basement, garage, outdoor, bathrooms, kitchens, the outlets there need to be protected by the GFCI themselves to protect the people that are living there.
Also, too, we're finding on a brand new construction is that a lot of our GFCIs are literally going bad so fast because, well, we all know where they're coming from, so we don't need to get into the politics here. But they're not coming from America, and they're just so cheap that they're going bad before I can even finish the home.
Wow.
So with that being said, folks, check your GFCI. Oh, tell them how to check it so they can actually, without having to go out and buy a tester, how they could test it.
Well, I mean, the testers you can get they're inexpensive. What, $10, $12, something like that?
They're real cheap.
And so you can
get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere.
Absolutely, and the big box stores, and you just basically plug it in to the GFCI, and then you have some buttons on top of it, and you can click the buttons, and it will tell you whether the GFCI is wired properly or if there's some kind of a fault. Okay, and it will tell you that immediately.
A lot of them are installed incorrectly because they hired a company that didn't know what the heck they was doing.
That's right. That's right.
If you push the button and it doesn't work, that's a dead giveaway that it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
So this is not important that we need to wrap that. I just wanted to take a minute on the GFCIs because I just feel we got to educate the people better on that.
Well, I mean, it's code. I mean, it's required in all building from after a certain point. And again, and they made it retroactive. So if you were to sell a home that was built in the 40s, I mean, the areas that have to be protected by GFCIs have got to be protected by GFCIs now. So you have to pay for that work to get done. So, and the GFCIs have got 2 buttons on them. They got the test button, they got the reset button, right? And so you can test it and see what's going on with it. And then when you're done with that, you hit the reset button to bring it back online.
So here's a good tip. Because of that, if your GFCI is working, and I know you know, Kevin, but if your GFCI is working and you want to know about the other outlets behind your GFCI, if they're protected with the GFCI, if you hit it to turn it off, you plug in on the other outlets that are around there, and if the outlets are no longer hot, meaning they're not energized and you can't run your radio or blender or coffee pot, then you know that that's protected. If it's still hot, then you know that that's not protected by the GFCI.
Correct.
So that's just a good tip for the folks to, know.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't do a video. I didn't need to do
that.
I need to do a YouTube video on that one.
Well,
that's a good idea.
Show them how to test the GFCI.
Yeah, I probably got a tester in the truck.
Yeah,
probably got more than one.
Right, exactly. But we'll also help with installation of appliances, electrical appliances. It's not really an electrical issue, but the anti-tip on ovens is a big deal.
That is a big deal.
So that can be called out in home inspection if you're selling your home all the time.
It's a code, it's a code. The municipalities. What he means by we'll explain to you what that anti-tip does, so they understand. They don't need to know the mechanics as much as they need to know why.
Yeah, so you got a floor standing range, right? So you've got the oven on the bottom and the stove on the top, and a lot of times with the oven on the bottom, you have the door. It could be pretty heavy, and so you can pull the door down. And if somebody, like a child, for instance, the oven's not on or anything, but the door is open, a child could get on that door and it can actually cause the oven to tip. And depending on it, what happens with the door, it could actually seriously injure somebody. And so the anti-tip, what that does is it's installed on the oven range and attached to the floor. So if the door is open and somebody were to lean on it, it's not going to cause the oven to tip forward. So, not allow the oven to tip forward, I should say.
But then the smart thermostats are really getting more and more popular, and honestly, they just ain't like it used to be for us, where anybody could stick one in there and then wire it. So that's good to know.
Yeah, there's some additional wiring involved with the smart one that a lot of people don't really. They may not read all the instructions and know that there has to be a common line. So,
yeah, you'd be surprised. No, you wouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised about how many companies in your industry that don't even know how to do that.
Right.
I mean, they flat don't even. As a matter of fact, a lot of them don't even do electrical issues at all.
No, and we do a lot of simple things like replacing fixtures and ceiling fans and light fixtures and things like that as well. So it's just helping people if they want to update their home, but they don't want to climb the ladder to do that. Then our guys can climb the ladder to take care of that for them.
Especially ceiling fans.
Absolutely right.
No matter where they're at, they're up high.
They are. That's right. That's right.
So that's good to know.
Yeah. And we also do some plumbing. Again, we don't have licensed plumber on staff. You do need licensed plumbers if you're doing anything with stack or if you're running brand new supply and waste lines. Again, some municipalities will require licensed plumbers for just about anything in the house. There are some municipalities here in St. Louis that require a licensed plumber to change a toilet, which is...
Isn't that stupid?
It's a fee grab.
But that's all that is.
That's all it is, yeah. But anyway, it's required. But we've done a lot of bathroom remodeling, whether it's changing out the toilet, changing out the vanity, pulling out the tub, putting in new tubs, new shower surrounds, those types of things as well. We'll do that kind of work. We have some guys that are really good at tile. If they want a tile floor or they want to tile around their new tub, we can do that as well. In faucet repair and replacement, most faucets have cartridges in them, then they can go bad over time. Especially in Missouri, it's got hard water. The hard water scaling can get in there and build up in the cartridge and cause it to have some problems with constant dripping or leaking, that kind of thing. And those need to be changed. There's cartridges on the inside of the faucets as well as shower heads, and those types of things can frequently go bad. So, yeah.
So if it's dripping, they might need to call a company.
Yeah.
Get them out there.
And just change the cartridge.
Yeah. And then, remember this, because I think that's a good point, folks, is that, a lot of that is, like Kevin just said, can be repaired like this. A lot of these companies, they want to charge as many hours as they can.
Right.
They're going to say, oh, you need a whole brand new plumbing system.
Right.
I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but not quite.
Yeah.
I've seen them come in there and just make all kinds of crazy accusations.
Sure. Absolutely right. Yeah. And so the other thing is new shower, bathtub installation, I mentioned that, and repair plumbing leaks. We can go in there and certainly can do those kinds of things. Works for me too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then we get into drywall and painting. We do a lot of drywall repair. You know, if somebody gouges a piece of drywall, moving a furniture or something like that around, you know, then we can come in and help them replace that part of the drywall. And, you know, it's easy to replace drywall, but the taping and the mudding is an art.
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
boy.
you got to know what you're
yeah.
doing. Yeah. So our guys are very good at that. So whether you've had a mold problem, you know, the mold company will take the drywall up to maybe 2 or 3 feet off the ground, you know, and then you need somebody to come back in and put new drywall there.
I just referred you folks to a job one, just that very same thing from an attorney. Well, I don't think he cares. He's a great attorney, Benson.
Okay.
So he contacted you. And
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just for that same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. And so we put the drywall back, and then if you know what you're doing with the mudding of the drywall, you won't see the seam. You know, so it looks like it's supposed to look. And
that's
so
an art.
It is. It truly is.
You know, so many of these guys, we don't even want to go there. Some of the nightmares we see out there. I don't even know how you folks even fix some of it without just tearing it all out and doing it again.
Sometimes
so
that's what we have to do. Yeah. Sometimes we have to do that. You're absolutely right. And then painting walls, ceilings, and trim. Again, you know, if people don't want to paint their walls or paint their ceilings, we can certainly do that. You know, if we do a drywall repair, we would typically paint from corner to corner in that room to make sure the paint all looks the same. You know, make sure it doesn't have little flashing marks on it like it can get. So
yeah, explain to the folks there, because I hear a lot of times, no, I only got X amount of money, and I understand I only got X amount of money too, but why can't you just paint that little piece?
Yeah.
You know, explain to them what flashing means, what it is that they're looking at, because I don't think a lot of folks actually understand the importance of what you just said.
Right. I mean, flashing, and we may have all done this at one time or another, that you did a small repair in a room and you just paint that little section right there, but you notice that that part of the wall that looks different. And it's called flashing, right? Because it's now new paint and it's got old paint around it, so you can see the difference between the new paint and the old paint. And so if you've got multiple spots on the wall, you're going to have spots on the wall. You know, and that flashing is really going to be very noticeable. So what we do is when we do a drywall repair and we have to, you know, put in a new piece or whatever, we will paint from corner of the room to corner of the room and on that wall, so it's all new paint on that wall, and it all looks the same way it's supposed to look. So that's what we're talking.
Especially when you get the right lighting on a poor drywall job.
Yeah, you really see it. You really see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's great to know, and I'm glad that you explained that to the folks so they understand. You're not trying to upcharge them. You're trying to give them a good job that you're not embarrassed with.
Yeah, well, they're going to want it to look right. You know, if they pay us to do it, so that is what will make it look right. So. Yeah.
Great.
And then we do some cabinet painting and refinishing as well. So,
we'll talk about cabinet painting and refinishing a little bit before we move on, because what are we doing here in refinishing, painting? You know, I know that we're seeing a lot more of this than we've ever seen before.
Right. Yeah.
So,
because maybe the cabinets are good quality cabinets, but they don't like the dark colors, or maybe even they don't like wood colored, you know, cabinets. You see that more and more nowadays.
You sure do.
And so what happens, you have a process where you have to go through and you got to clean the cabinets and you got to make sure you're getting all the oil, all the grease built up from people's hands and cooking, and then once you've got it down to a surface, and that's not stripping all of the stain off, it's just cleaning the outside that's on the stain, because then you can prep the cabinet properly and then you can paint it whatever color they want. You know, and you do it correctly with the right types of cabinet paint that you can get, and then it will look good. You know, they'll look like some of these newer, lighter colored cabinets that people are going towards, rather than trying to get away from the wood look a lot of times.
Do you guys do any, and I don't see many of the companies that do that, but do you all by chance do cabinet door replacement? You know, we used to just put our but our Formica or laminate on the cabinets and redo it, and then which was beautiful, but then you had to redo your doors. Do you guys do anything like that?
We don't. No, we'll refer that out to
I don't see a whole lot of that like we used to. I see a lot more painting.
Yes.
And that's what I'm seeing, because like you said, they're good cabinets, they're good doors, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper.
Yes, it is.
And you got brand new cabinets.
That's right. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Lighten up the look in the kitchen or whatever. So yeah, exactly. Right.
Then go along with lighting. Oh, so I'm going to throw a pitch in here for Doug Walters. I did a show with a lighting engineer. The fella's out of Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Great show. And he talks about the lighting and so how important that is. And then so, hey, listen to that show too, because that's a great.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Put the two together.
That's right. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so then, you know, basically we just do a variety of tasks. I mean, we talk about doing, you know, honey-do lists, whatever it may be. But if you just need something small that's done around your house, replacing light fixture, as I mentioned, how about replacing a garbage disposal or installing a new garbage disposal? You know, updating switches and outlets, replacing the toilets we mentioned before. drywall. Repairing double hung windows is something that we do that I don't know of a lot of other handyman services that do. But the double hung windows, those are the windows that slide up and down. Okay,
Both sashes.
Yeah, but both will go slide up and down. And what will happen with those is there's a balance in there that can break. The line can break in the balance, which would mean that if you're pushing your window up and it will just fall down like this on you, and maybe get you in the fingers or whatever, that means the balance is broken. Okay, and so it's a safety issue, and it's also something that will be called out in a home inspection. And so we can go in there and literally change the balance. So rather than having to replace all the window itself, which can be very, very expensive, we can go in there, we take part of the window apart, we pull the balance out, the old balance out, and then there's a supplier we can go to get the new balance, and then we just install that, and then the window works just as good as new.
I want to stop on that just a second, because this is a huge con that I see. A window man, so people call up on, there's two things about windows, and one's the glass and compromise, and that's not what we're talking here, but the not staying up by itself. So these window companies, they come out here, and what are they going to sell you? $100, $150, $200 repair? Or are they going to sell you a $1,000 window? Well, if I'm a salesman and I get 10% of the sale, I'm not going to sell you a $200, $100 repair. I'm going to sell you a $1,000 window. They don't really care.
Right.
Where that's why I want you to think about that, because a lot of times they do not need a damn new window. Because you know what they do? Well, you got this window put in here, Kevin. How about they don't match the other windows? I think you need to do the whole front of the house.
Right, exactly.
Sure. And where you go in, that's great. I just wanted to stop for a sec, because that's so important to make sure, and because it happens all the time.
It does.
And I even got some videos out there just about them cons. So that's great.
Yeah.
But I need to do one with you where you're actually replacing that.
Yeah.
So we can show people how to do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Not that they'll ever want to do it, but at least they can see it.
Right. Yeah, and they understand, because these balances, these are cables that are built into the channels in the windows that you'll never see behind the channel unless you decide you want to take it apart. And
Anderson windows, is it got that type of system? There's several of the windows out there that have just that. Oh, and how many times have I seen a carpenter put trim up? Me included. I got my nail too close. Zing! Oh, crap. I hit that. We do it, brand new. Then that happens.
It sure does. Absolutely.
And I'm guilty of it. So replacing screens, that's a good one, because even though we have a lot of folks nowadays with allergies and such do not shut they don't open their windows.
Right, true.
They keep it shut all winter. But crazy thing is, there's a lot of municipalities, whether you open them or not, it's code during the certain times of the year that if I inspect your house for occupancy, like from, I forgot, May till September or something, if there's not a screen in them openings, they got to put a screen in.
Yeah, they do.
They even close, even though they never open them.
That's right. Exactly right.
And screens get beat up with weather. They get beat up. I mean, hail is just hail is bad on it.
Yeah, right.
I kind of went the wrong way with that thought, but we all heard my thinking. So check your screens. But if you're like me, I love the fresh air.
Me too.
I love it. Well, of course, we're old school,
Yeah.
And we grew up before. What air conditioning means that you just ran through the house fast.
Right. We went outside and slept in the shade.
Yeah. So that's a good. And hanging pictures. Wow. I would never want to do that for people. I don't even want to do it for my own wife. What about over here? What about there? Now, how in the world do you actually bid hanging pictures?
It's basically based on picture, and where the location, because if it's on a staircase, it's going to be a little bit more expensive because you're having to work with one of those, cantilever ladders.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but if it's a full wall of things, we'll do it based on how much time we think it will take each one. In fact, one of the things, hanging pictures, we also had one of our jobs where we were hanging a bunch of mounts. This family was a big hunting family. And so they had gone on safaris, and they had gone on safaris in Africa. They had to have things hung. They had to have everything from deer and elk and bear and everything else that needed to be hung. And so we priced that out for them and went where they wanted to put it, and we went from there.
Okay. That's awesome to know. I got a few questions here because I know we're coming to the end here that I've been asked here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how, because you guys are professional and you handle this always right, but what happens if you tell me I'm going to be here how's the best way for a company to handle this? I'll tell you, I'm going to be on a job on Wednesday, but because of whatever could have happened, maybe the weather or, later or something, how should a professional company like yourself, how do y'all handle that? Because you need to make sure this kind of communication's in the contract.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. What we do is we are in constant communication with the clients. The way we work is that they call, set up an estimate appointment, and we come out there. Estimates are always free, as I mentioned earlier, and then we give them the line item bid. And if they accept it, then we take a look at the work calendar and we say, okay, we can have a guy there on Wednesday, and we'll start at 8 on most days. Or if it's going to be a smaller job, we might say we can't get there until 1 that day, but we'll be done that day. Sometimes we'll start a job in the afternoon, but then we know it's going to be a 2.5-day job, that type of a thing. But we're always just letting them know. Say, okay, we're going to be, such and such is going to be there at this time during the day. And if you're not going to be there at 8, we'll be there about 10, maybe be there at 2, whatever. But then they'll come in and they'll start the work at that time. And we just want you to have the work area relatively clear, so we're not having to move a lot of furniture around, that type of a thing. But we will bring drop cloths and we bring booties and we bring those types of things, so we make sure we're not disrupting their house or bringing in any more dirt than we need to.
That's a mark of a professional company right there.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference. Well, so that's I get with that. Now, you and I talked about this before the beginning of the show. Actually, talk about my job. And I talk about this in the book about deposits. And so I talk about, this is a perfect example where sometimes you got to have a larger deposit or a down payment. And the reason we have to do, as I speak in the book, is it's the only way you're going to make a legal contract. But then, little or big jobs, I always say, you don't need to put all that money down. But on these smaller jobs, and I talk about that in the book, you have to put more down. Explain to the folks why it is from your perspective, because I'm a builder, so I look. Sure. I'm in another world. So to explain to them is because it is important that they, it's not the same thing. And I talk about that, but I want you to embellish on that if you would.
No, I mean our typical contract requires 50% down, and that is what gets you on the work calendar. Okay, because that may be may have to buy materials, or obviously we're going to be paying our people during that time, and then the remaining balance of the contract is due once the work is completed to their satisfaction. And so that's just the way it's set up. And so we'll work with them. We do take credit cards as well. So it's a lot of times people will use their credit card because they get points on their travel cards or whatever. In real estate transactions, there are times when we have taken payment at closing, because that's something that they've just worked out ahead of time, with the seller.
I like that with the credit card. And actually, I need to put an addendum in the book about that, because if they did it by credit card, that gives them a certain level of protection too.
It absolutely does.
And if a company isn't qualified to take a credit card, maybe that's not the company you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's, we're talking Chuck in a truck that's still drunk,
That's right, exactly, yeah.
And that's because we do worry about that, but that would give them, you taught me something. I need to put that into the next version of the book. I'll add that in there. That's a great protection.
Yeah, it is, right? Because then they can dispute the charge if there's a problem, and the credit card company will always take their side, in a dispute like that until it's proven otherwise. So that gives them some more leverage to make sure that things are actually done correctly.
But don't think you're going to rip anybody off because the credit card is, because all he has to do, as everybody knows, I do construction litigation work. All you got to do is hire me. I come in and say, the work's done right. Now you owe this plus the penalties for not paying the bill.
Exactly right.
So, so don't think it's a way of cheating people, because there's folks like me out there that help both consumers and contractors.
That's right. Exactly.
So, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So now another one of the questions that was been asked to me is on lien waivers.
Sure.
So many times, actually, I'd have to say most of the time with the handyman type companies, they don't even give any type of lien waivers. As a matter of fact, I'm working with some people out in the rural areas right now in the country, and everything is still good old boy hand, shaking hand, and everybody's honest and it's true. But in the cities area, it's not so much. But lien waivers, they don't even know about lien waivers, and a lot of the smaller companies, they never give a lien waiver.
True.
So how do you guys work that?
Yeah. We're happy to provide lien waivers for any of our clients, but honestly, we get requests for lien waivers most often for in a realty transaction, okay? Because maybe the seller is paying for some repairs, and so we not only have to have paid receipts, but they also have to have lien waivers to go to closing, okay? And so those are just provided as a matter of course once the job is done.
Yeah, just to prove
Yeah.
that the person has been done. So that's a
Exactly.
protection for the buyer.
That's exactly right. But any homeowner can request them, and we'll be happy to provide it once the job is done. Here's your lien waiver.
It's a good idea. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of a few moments of work.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
well, that's awesome.
So that was all I had put together to talk about here, unless you have some other questions. For
Well,
me.
so the only other questions I have is, I'm going to revert back to the book. So when your folks come in, how do they, and I know how your guys do, so they're very professional and they don't do it, but I see a lot of these guys, they come in and they not, first you already mentioned it, they stomp, they bring mud into their on their shoes and they smoke and they're smoking out,
Yeah.
I've even seen some smoking in the house,
Right, yeah, that too.
and now nobody, even if you smoke, you don't care if people because you don't know about burning hole. Oh, I have literally seen when we back in the late 80s and early 90s, we was doing a lot of track homes, building track homes. I cannot even tell you how many people I've brand new homes, and there are cigarette burns in the vinyl flooring.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, so
that's crazy.
So how do you? I don't even know if any of your folks even smoke. I've never seen them smoke on the job, but I guess if they do, they go outside and to the truck or their car.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple guys that smoke, but yeah, they're not going to do it obviously on the job at all. They may get into their car or truck and do it there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, them are a lot of the great things that I really want to touch base on, and that I got people have been asking me, and and I know you're giggling at my notes here, but go ahead and wrap this up, and as much as you want, but tell them who you are, and how they can find you, and also Kevin, I get calls from all over the country. What if somebody, will you answer the call? I know you said you would once on the warranty, but if somebody has a question, it's not even your jurisdiction, in an area that you work, can they call you and touch base and say, hey, is the ceiling fan supposed to wobble?
I mean, they can certainly call, but again, our biggest thing is we always want to go out there and take a look at the job, and so we may not be able to really answer the question without taking a look at it. And so we would typically recommend that maybe they find somebody that's in a local Better Business Bureau member, and then talk to the Better Business Bureau about them and check with them that way.
Yeah, that's something else I want to mention real quick about the Better Business Bureau, because actually you guys are joining our construction consumer advocacy and for qualified contractors. So Better Business Bureau is a great system to go to. And you are A+ if you pay. You're only A if you don't pay. But that doesn't mean if you're A, you're less than A+. It just means that you're contributing because you believe in the system.
Right.
So I just didn't want to make anybody look bad because they don't pay, but yet they still did a great job in a good system. Yeah. And that's a good one to work with. But also, too, it kind of protects the consumer or the consumer, too, if they got some complaints, because they give both sides of the story. Right. And that's how our construction consumer advocacy, we're giving both sides of the story, and we want to have the qualified contractors. So if you have a question, if you can't reach Kevin, I'm always available. I get calls all the time. Actually, there's a young lady I just called me out of Nebraska. Between Kevin and myself and the consumer advocacy, there's tons of free information for you to go to and get to learn. And so that'll be up on the bottom of our banner here when you watch our show, and all Kevin's information will be out there. And anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, if you're curious about having some work done at your home, just give us a call. The estimates are free, so we simply just ask for the audition, and we'll come out there, we'll give you the estimate, and you can decide whether you want to proceed.
Well, I highly recommend you, and I do really want you guys to come back and talk about the home warranty again. Okay. Because I know we talked about that 5 or 6 years ago, so things have changed.
Yes, they have.
And the world has really changed. And folks, thank you for watching. Hey, once again, I wanted to share with you, if you folks anybody that purchases our book, you can now get it on Amazon. A part of the proceeds go to the Moolah Shrine, which then helps the children and helps the shrine and everything. But it's also, if you join our advocacy, and it's free. The book's not free, but advocacy and all the information is absolutely free. Then we will send you. All you got to do is ask, and I got a lot of folks a lot of people are jumping on this. What are the top 10 questions to ask from your contractor? But we're also going to offer one more thing. If you subscribe and you send back to the email, hey, I want to subscribe to your channel, I'm going to give you the top 10 questions to ask a handyman company also. No charge. And there's no charge to the advocacy. It's all free information. So what do you got to lose? Except a whole ton of money if you don't. Anyway, thanks for Kevin. Appreciate your time,
pleasure.
sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, folks, and God bless you. And I hope this has been helpful.
Sponsored by Troy Galloway and Galloway Building Services. GallowayBuildingServices.com.